Hello, everyone. Today we have a content warning. Today's episode contains cases involving assault, stalking, threats, and fraternities. If these topics are sensitive to you, please don't listen.
Good afternoon, fellow Huskies. My name is Julia.
My name is Christi.
And today we'll be covering crimes on campus, what kind of stuff you can expect from your life at UConn, and if UConn really deserves its reputation for being relatively safe.
Now, I know what you may be thinking. UConn doesn't seem like the type of place where axe murderers or evil to be lurking in the shadows. But while those are thankfully uncommon, there are unfortunately still definitely crimes committed here. It's not always an unsolved serial killer unraveling his master plan through cryptic codes and whatnot, though those are usually the ones that make the headlines. Almost all crimes are just basic breaking of the law, like just going a little too hard on the gas or being broke and taking an overpriced snack. But those crimes are boring, you may say. Honestly, they're sometimes justified, but I digress. Point is, crimes vary, and there can be a lot to say for even the smallest of mysteries. To demonstrate, allow me to investigate one of UConn's most widely known stars, arguably its most important figure, Jonathan the Husky. Dun, dun, dun. Did you know just how many strange mysteries this dog has? Mysteries that make you wonder what hides behind those old gray eyes, those pointy teeth and sharp claws, its thick, fluffy coat. Does it keep weapons in there? Okay. Here's some context. The first Jonathan was appointed in 1934. That year, Rhode Island's ram mascot was kidnapped, and the story gained interest in bringing a live animal mascot to Connecticut State College. A student poll selected the Husky to be the college's mascot, and thus, in January 1935, Connecticut State College's first Husky mascot arrived at the campus in stores. They also had a name contest, which Jonathan won. And so Jonathan was born. Or was he? Unfortunately, he was hit by a car the day before the name was announced. In fact, most Jonathans have had a strange story and some weird patterns. For example, Jonathans 6 and 8 also died shortly after their introductions on campus after being hit by a car as well. Jonathan II chased Brown University's live bear mascot and chased him up a tree. How do you even do that? Then Jonathan III chased Yale's bulldog around the Yale Bowl, continuing the tradition. Jonathan IV bit the Yale bulldog on the nose. Scary.
It's a miracle we've been invited back to Yale for any event.
Jonathan III was also dog-napped before a football game. I'm sorry, what is people's fascination with this? Jonathans 5 and 12 couldn't handle large crowds and were retired, which thankfully guidelines changed for the dogs since number 13 to hopefully prevent that from happening. And then there's the mystery of Jonathans 9 and 10. Jonathan 9 arrived on campus in July 1991 and began his stay with Alpha Phi Omega. However, before his debut to the student body, the fraternity stated that the Husky was not Jonathan 9, but actually Jonathan 10. Alpha Phi Omega's theory was that two Huskies served as Jonathan 8, and the mascot's name needed to reflect this. There are no public records to dispute or verify this claim, but it is the claim given by the university in publications, not tours. In 2023, a university news director clarified that the original Jonathan 8 was brought to campus in 1970 and died shortly after being hit by a car. Again. Jonathan 7 then continued as the sole mascot until 1977 when the second Jonathan 8 arrived on campus. Another theory on campus states that students of Clubhouse 29 found a stray pup on the streets and took him in. After being informed it was Jonathan 9, they refused to give the pup back to Alpha Phi Omega. The fraternity mobilized and was able to find another Husky in time, Jonathan 10. Even though it is unclear what the truth is surrounding Jonathan 10, he served the university dutifully. Jonathan 10 is notable for having one blue eye and one brown eye, known as heterochromia iridium. Tragically, Jonathan 10 was also struck by a vehicle and died in 1995. So, that's a lot. To this day, the true identity of the missing quote-unquote Jonathans remain unsolved, and their strange patterns of behavior and mysteries really leave a lot to think about. I mean, I saw Jonathan 14 strolling around campus. It felt like he was stalking the humans like a predator casing its prey. I mean, he could be a Time Lord and has been reincarnating since 1934. Well, what is he hiding? Bodies? We may never know. But for real, while crazy headline events aren't exactly common on campus, there are still a fair share of things to delve into. According to the latest crime report for the Storrs campus on 2023, 2022, and 2021, there were 0 murders or manslaughters, 0 cases of incest, thank God, 3 robberies in 2023, 36 burglaries in 2021 to 23, a few aggravated assaults in 2022, 24 motor vehicle thefts between 2022 to 23, 10 cases of arson, in 2023, nearly 1,000 liquor law violations, and about 130 drug abuse violations over 2021 to 2023.
So much for a dry campus.
And lastly, unfortunately, there have been 14 cases of stalking, 40 cases of domestic violence, and the most common major crime was sexual assault, at a total of 57 cases over the 3 years. This is all out of the roughly 19,800 person population on Storrs.
While the crimes mentioned are all relatively alarming, the more major ones are at least less common on campus. However, these are just the crimes on paper, the ones reported. The real number of offenses for any of these crimes could be higher for all we know. This all begs the question, what can we do? Well, we have 3 cases to examine today, chosen at random, that reveal quite a bit about the thought process behind criminals on campus, all from 2024 alone. On May 9th, 2024, fraternity Lambda Theta Phi was caught under fire after its former president was alleged to engage in hazing involving physical violence. At the off-campus fraternity hangout house in Wellington, just 10 minutes from the UConn campus, there had been a lot of past unwanted attention with reports of disrupted behavior prompting police intervention. According to a student, the noise and commotion from fraternity parties have become a regular occurrence, but a recent incident crossed the line into aggression, leading him to call the police. It's screaming and banging on the walls, said the student. The house was shaking, and it was like 1 a.m. I'm done. The chaotic scene that followed, with dozens of intoxicated individuals flooding the streets. He said at least 50 or 70 drunk kids came running out in everybody's yards. It's a mess, and I woke up the next day, and there were literal beer cans everywhere. This was just outside the house. The victim, a UConn student, said David Vallejo, who was the fraternity president and the pledge master, hazed, pushed, choked, and physically assaulted the victim. The warrant states that the victim was on the 5th day of the pledging process, February 8th, when Vallejo picked him up and another pledge at their UConn dorm. He drove them to the house in Wellington, it says, where the pledges were lined up, military style, and forced to do push-ups while reciting the pledge masters were saying. Every time one of them became unable to do the push-ups, the warrant says, the pledge masters would make the pledges start over. It says Vallejo started to get angry at the victim for being unable to do push-ups and allegedly picked up the victim and threw them across the room into the wall. The warrant says the victim stood up and Vallejo put his forearm against their throat, pushed them into the wall, and started yelling. After the pledges successfully recited the fraternity code, it says they were allowed to go home for the night. The following day, on February 9th, the warrant says the victim went back to the home and the pledge masters made them learn and recite new information about the fraternity. When they failed to remember it, the warrant said they were made to do push-ups. The warrant says Vallejo got mad at the victim when he was unable to do push-ups for long, adding he threw them across the room again. It said he tried to get the victim to quit. When that failed, he made the victim get back into push-up position and recite the fraternity code. After that, the warrant says Vallejo pushed the victim up against the wall and choked them again with his forearm. The victim quit the next day, it said, and Vallejo allegedly assaulted him a month later when he returned his pledge uniform. That incident was reported to UConn police.
So, UConn has taken action by suspending the fraternity, but do you think they could have prevented it? I mean, they let that culture go on for a while, and they could have definitely had some sort of security in place to stop these practices from building up, like, on campus at least. Like, even if, like, this stuff happens off campus, I believe this house could at least have resident assistants or, like, something to break up this culture from festering on campus. So I guess my question is, like, where were they? Like, they definitely would have been aware of the culture.
Yeah, I mean, it's a widely known thing across the country that the pledging and rushing is so, like, dangerous. The things they're forced to do, like, even staying up late hours, heavy drinking, like, that's a widely known thing that happens in these fraternities and sororities. And even though it's off campus, the university still knows about it. They still have a responsibility because all of those people there are their students, and more needs to be done.
Yeah. This next case is a personal account of a basketball player's stalker. A man named Robert Cole Parmalee was stalking and harassing UConn basketball star Paige Beckers for nearly half of a year before he was arrested. Beckers told police that she discovered that Parmalee had been sending various videos to her Instagram direct messages since February, but they were not threatening. She said she did not respond to the messages. Parmalee had posted photos, videos, and comments about Beckers on TikTok and other social media platforms, and had been emailing UConn officials since June with rambling comments, including his desire to marry Beckers, police said. The postings and emails initially did not warrant criminal charges, but his comments became alarming over time, according to the reports. In a TikTok posting reviewed by the Associated Press, Parmalee referred to a photo of Beckers and an unnamed man writing, "This is worth it for this guy, huh? This is just one guy. I'll sacrifice him, no problems, no questions asked." The police reports mentioned that post and refer to Beckers. What?
Yeah, that's crazy.
In another post, he also talked about bringing Beckers flowers and finding her mother's home, police said. He also wrote in a different post that if he cannot live with the woman of his choosing, referring to Beckers, then I will choose to die, and I will choose to take all of you that oppose us, to hell. He also tells Beckers that if you allow them to touch you, you allow them to die, according to the police reports.
Yeah, like, that's so twisted to make it seem like she's in on it. Like, he's, like, so delusional to the point where he believes she's on his side.
I'm sorry, but, like, at that point, like, how would you ever possibly believe that she would love you?
Yeah. And, like, she's probably 22 at the time. Like, college student. Like,
this guy is 40, as we'll get into a bit later. But yeah, the creepy stuff continues, of course. In a TikTok post before he arrived in Connecticut, Parmalee wrote, "I'm coming to UConn, Paige Madison Beckers. I'll be in Hartford tomorrow morning." and included a photo of himself with airline tickets in an airport. Parmalee was initially arrested on August 27th while walking along a highway near Bradley International Airport near Hartford. He told a state trooper that he had just flown in from the Pacific Northwest and was on his way to see Beckers at UConn, the police report said, adding that he was found with a ring and lingerie.
Ugh, yuck. Also, why is he walking on the highway?
I don't know.
Like, if you have the money to buy a plane ticket, I feel like maybe you have the money to get from Bradley into Hartford,
It's
like XL Center.
It's a strange incident, and like even when the trooper took Parmalee into custody, when he learned there was an arrest warrant out of Josephine County, like this arrest warrant like accused Parmalee of setting a home on fire with roommates and pets inside, and like they're just letting the. I mean, like I know they don't know where he is, but like I mean, and in some ways they're like letting that guy walk around the country. Like I feel like that would be like a nationwide types thing, but anyway.
Yeah, you'd think that that warrant would have extended beyond Oregon. And, like, the university was aware of him and what he was doing. And, I mean, I see constantly the Paige Beckers fans all over social media who are all over this guy for a while. So it's kind of crazy that none of them knew about this warrant. And they were just talking about all the creepy things he was doing and posting. Like, this warrant should have been out there, and people should have been warned about how dangerous he is.
But to continue, while Parmalee was initially detained on the arson warrant out of Oregon, he was then charged with felony stalking and misdemeanor harassment and breach of peace by UConn police. The police reports say Parmalee has a criminal history dating back to 2002 that includes arrests for misdemeanor sexual abuse, harassment, burglary, driving under the influence, and possession of methamphetamine. How is this guy not on a list?
Yeah, like his history alone should have made that warrant far more publicized.
Yeah. Police officials in Oregon told Connecticut authorities they had no information related to mental health calls associated with Parmalee, which is Jesus.
Yeah, we have no information minus his long list of criminal encounters.
Like, at the very least, dude's sus.
Yeah.
Like, Becker said she became concerned for the safety of herself, her family, and her teammates after learning of Parmalee's arrest near the airport. So now, I'm sorry, but for me personally, if I was being stalked in any capacity, I would want that shit stopped second one. I know Becker's is famous, and I know she didn't report this immediately since it was just like creepy DMs at first in February, and she didn't know this guy's history of violence. But once UConn officials got a hold of these emails, they should have done research on his propensity for violence.
Yeah, and I mean, I see what you're saying about her doing something about it sooner, but the amount of fans she has, especially like young teenagers and then a bunch of old adults who are constantly like, I see it on social media all the time and I try and scroll past it, but people are obsessed. And like, I'm sure she's constantly getting these weird DMs, these weird messages. So like, for his to stick out, he would have had to do some more serious things, which he eventually ended up doing, because I think she's just constantly swamped with all this weird attention.
I mean, like, even still, like, I feel like at the very least someone should be monitoring that. Like, UConn should be.
Yeah, I think UConn should have done something. Like a school like this, with the athletic programs we have to realize that their athletes are not only famous on campus, but they're famous across the country, especially the basketball players, and that a threat like this should be taken seriously because, you know, like, they have, like, everybody, there are people all over the country who know who she is, and they have a responsibility as the university that she plays for to take care of her. And I feel like they dropped the ball with this.
Yeah, like, I'm not asking for, like, FBI level investigations, but they damn well could have gotten his criminal record. I mean,
And they should have banned him from buying tickets from the game.
Yeah.
I don't know why they didn't do that first. He probably could have created accounts and got around that. And I mean, he had a warrant out, so I'm not really sure how he bought a ticket anyway. But there's definitely, like, some smaller level things that they should have been doing.
Now, thankfully, he didn't end up hurting her, but this could have gone down very differently. This guy was unhinged, threatening homicide, and marrying a parasocial relationship, which is a recipe for him getting told no and killing the girl. At what point are threats taken seriously? Only if there's a crime committed?
Yeah.
Like, only if it's a death threat? I I'm sorry, there has to be more.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be more in that situation.
And for our final case, and last but worst, UConn had a trial for a mass shooting threat last year.
Yep. Dennis Hernandez, the troubled brother of the late New England Patriots tight end Aaron Hernandez, pled guilty to threatening to carry out a shooting at UConn and to kill 3 people outside of the state, including a judge. In 2023, federal prosecutors said Terry Hernandez told police around the time of his arrest in Bristol last year that he had deteriorating mental health problems, including bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. Dennis Hernandez was shocked with a stun gun and taken into custody after he came out of his sister's house with his arms raised, yelling, "Shoot me," and threatening to harm officers. Police said Hernandez, 38, went by DJ while playing football for UConn in the mid-2000s. Federal prosecutors said Hernandez threatened a shooting at UConn's main campus and stores in July 2023 while messaging another person on Facebook. I would recommend remaining away from there because when I go, I'm taking down everything Hernandez wrote, according to court documents. And don't give a blank. Who gets caught in the crossfire? I've died for years now, and now it's other people's turn. I'm prepared to give my life. Not all shootings are bad. I'm realizing some are necessary for change to happen. Wow. Court filings said Hernandez was struggling financially and frustrated by seeing other people get hired as football coaches and felt owed by UConn. He played quarterback and wide receiver for the Huskies. I mean, given his family history, I don't think they want him in a coaching position. Police said Hernandez had driven to the UConn campus and to Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, where he once served as quarterback coach, to map the schools out for a shooting.
Wait, if they know about this, why didn't they arrest him? Or did they only piece it together afterwards?
I'm guessing they pieced it together afterwards,
Oh.
but maybe he told them that. He seems like he's doing things intentionally. He's okay with the consequences, so I'm sure he was somewhat forthcoming.
Either way, I feel like this dude should also be on the sus list for reasons we'll get into shortly.
Yeah. Also, in July 2023, prosecutors said Hernandez made multiple Facebook posts threatening to harm or kill 3 people who lived out of Connecticut, including a state court judge. Hernandez has pending charges in state court in Connecticut in connection with an incident outside ESPN's headquarters in Bristol. He was arrested in March 2023 on a misdemeanor breach of peace charges after police say he threw a bag containing a brick and a note over a fence and onto ESPN's property before leaving. I wonder if we know what was on that note.
It says it.
Oh, it does say it? To all media outlets, it's about time you all realize the effect media has on all family members. Since you're a worldwide leader, maybe you could lead how media and messages are delivered brick by brick. Clean it up. Yours truly, Dennis J. Hernandez, the note said. Okay. Well, I mean, I have to imagine it's in response to everything with his brother. And, like, the authorities said Hernandez was angry with people he believed were profiting from the death of his younger brother, Aaron Hernandez, an NFL player who killed himself in 2017 while serving a murder sentence.
Oh, I heard about that.
Aaron was arrested in 2013 for the murder of Odin Lloyd, a semi-professional player who was dating the sister of Hernandez's fiancée. 2 years later, he was found guilty of first-degree murder and subsequently charged for the double homicide of Daniel Diabro and Safiro Furtado. He was acquitted of those 2 crimes 2 days prior to his death. Aaron was posthumously diagnosed with chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, a progressive neurodegenerative disease that develops after repeated traumatic brain injuries, including concussions. Aaron and DJ were portrayed by John Andres Rivera, and Ian Castellanos, respectively, an American Sports Story, which aired on FX late last year. The 10-episode miniseries followed Aaron's life from his time as a child growing up in Connecticut to his college football career at the University of Florida and in the NFL. This show also gave insight into his arrest and how his family was impacted by the highly publicized trial. I mean, I think I've probably seen at least 4 or 5 documentaries based off their family. Like,
Wow.
yeah, they make a lot of stuff about it. And I mean, especially in New England, it's weird because he grew up in Connecticut. He was, I'm talking about Aaron, he was beloved. He went to Florida to play football. He got to play with Team Tebow, so it was like a big deal. And then he came back and played for New England, and he was beloved. And then after everything went down, they just tore this family apart in the media. So yeah, you can see how it would be really hard for a sibling. Both Hernandez's family was frequently abusive and struggled financially, and their childhood was extremely difficult. I won't get into the details since this could frankly be its own episode, but I will add this quote from the Boston Globe referring to Aaron Hernandez. There was no way, except physically, he was ready for this. The young man who came to Gainesville wasn't academically prepared or emotionally grounded for college life, according to previous undisclosed college records, recordings of phone calls Hernandez later made from jail. He had graduated high school more than a semester early, not because he was a great student, but because he was a great football player. The athletic gifts were obvious, but behind them was an angry teenager struggling with the abusive upbringing and a growing dependence on drugs and questions about his own sexual identity.
So, I believe that, like, if any of this story is at all similar to Dennis's story, which, I mean, it obviously definitely affected him already, but both these boys were clearly troubled and thrown into the world with high expectations and no time to get proper support or heal. And while UConn isn't exactly responsible for their financial struggle or abuse they endured, it sure doesn't help with its massive entry fees, high expectations, and the social pressure to go to college as if everything's okay looming over every student's backs.
And especially at both a school like UConn or University of Florida, where athletics are kind of the priority in many ways, they are both given this platform, this safety net, that being like popular and on the football team allows them to do things. And like I don't know so much for Dennis, but if you look into Aaron Hernandez while he was in college, he was very emotional and physical with people and constantly getting into trouble, but because he was a football player, they were able to cover all that up. So I think it's safe to say at UConn there's probably some of the same things that go on because of their status as an athlete.
Yeah, that makes sense then, I guess, what Dennis said about his rage towards the media profiting off of his brother and their story. I'm sure I can't even imagine the things he went through. It doesn't excuse, obviously,
Right.
any of the threats, but yeah, it's really a tragic story all around.
Yeah, you can definitely see how it was hard for him, but he did what he did, and he did it intentionally.
So, well, it seems like these incidents weren't directly caused by UConn necessarily, and instead were the actions of lone students. Can individuals or UConn still increase safety on campus or prevent these crimes from happening? In the last episode, I said, to summarize, that if you or a loved one are struggling with mental health issues, even beneath the surface, to not let it slide and to look up and seek proper support. Because no one is above mental wellness. Everyone needs it, even the biggest football players, even the people who are the most disenfranchised, even people who are seemingly resilient enough to do whatever the hell hazing is.
Mm-hmm.
And there are mental health support services on campus, thankfully. Last time I also said self-defense is a worthy investment for anyone who, well, values their life. But you're not always going to be carrying a gun to class. I mean, I hope you don't. Pepper spray is also a popular form of personal protection that is non-lethal, legal to conceal, and pack stopping power. But while getting mental health support and self defense are still recommended this time around, there is a bit more work to be done in these cases on the part of the systems. Last episode's case didn't really have a failing on the part of the systems, if I remember correctly, namely the police, which is surprising to me as a true crime enthusiast, because very often in cases, the cops will tamper with or even plant evidence, fail to investigate or take seriously, or overuse force. And as we saw in the cases I saw today, there was some level of failure on the part of the systems, like the police. The police failed to take the stalking seriously at first, in Becker's case, and she could have, in that time, been abducted or any number of things if the guy coming after her had done things differently. In UConn's case, the fraternity culture got progressively more intense, yet they were still allowed to fester, clearly without enough security, for a long time. And the threat from Dennis Hernandez was from a man so severely screwed by the systems in place, he felt he had no other way than extreme violence. I mean, he was unstable, but it still shouldn't have happened. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is if people would, by default, have their needs met and be protected systematically, then many crimes would simply not have a reason to happen. Unfortunately, things like this university costing an absurd amount of money to attend are often an extremely mentally taxing experience. On top of survival, many create parasocial relationships to cope with disenfranchisement. Many find community doing extreme things to be worth it because the alternative is a lack of support system. Some are even pushed into mental health crises due to being given no break from capitalism to heal and recover. It's always go, go, go. And while the regulations currently in place are effective at punishment, they aren't always so much at prevention.
So, in conclusion, UConn is overall relatively safe when it comes to crimes. It has resources, awareness, a culture of inclusivity, and a lot of positives. However, while you can never truly stop all crimes from ever happening, the crime on campus ultimately is caused by our systems that fail to meet our needs and provide barriers on campus. While the crimes mentioned in today's cases are undoubtedly on the shoulders of the perpetrators, they didn't come out of nowhere. Every incident is, in part, a product of the system. Crime prevention is giving people their needs, protection, and community. Anyway, this has been UConn's True Crime Club podcast, signing off for today. Tune in next time for a deep dive into the culture behind UConn athletics and if anything shady happens behind closed doors. I'm Julia.
I'm Christy.